Hi, welcome to the F1 Time Portal, a Formula One history podcast started by two Formula One spies. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm your Space Oddity host, Luigi. And today we're taking you back to the 1974 season, part 2. So let's go.
Who's going first? I'll go first. I've chosen spies because we have the Shadow team on the grid. And also,
yes.
in signing 1974, The Man with the Golden Gun was a big movie, which was, I think, the 9th movie in the Bond series. So,
and that's the one that Tyrrell should. I don't think they've released the 007 yet.
No, that's right. And they haven't. They haven't. And they should have. Yeah, they should have somehow used that as their marketing tool. But anyway, so instead we will do it, Luigi.
Yeah, we will create those connections and earn money for the Tyrrell team that no longer exists today. Yeah.
Space Oddity. Oh, that's a good song.
Yeah, it's a good song. I like that song. I thought that was a different era.
No,
is that the album? Is that the album name?
I don't know.
Anyway, I hope I got it right is all I can say.
Yeah. Someone will tell us if we didn't.
Yeah, but this is peak David Bowie era. So I like
David Bowie. Exactly. That's a good David Bowie.
So we're up to the second race of the season, the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's at Interlagos on 27th of Jan, so a couple of weeks after the Argentinian race. It's 32 laps and it's thundery weather.
And so for the second time ever, remember last year was the first Brazilian, we're back at the Brazilian Grand Prix. And now it's Emerson Fittipaldi's turn to face the fanatical support of the South Americans. And also Carlos Pache is also driving. He's another Brazilian. So, yeah, we've got two Brazilian drivers here.
And Pache's in that Surtees, so let's not forget.
Yes.
That Surtees is probably even worse than the
Haas.
The Haas, yeah. It's a very much back of the midfield sort of team. That's important to appreciate, I think. So there is some preliminary drama which is worth sharing, that there were many new parts required for many teams because of all the drama that happened in the last race. And that's not long between races to fix up things in the 70s.
Yeah, remember Shadow damaged their two cars.
Yeah. And the Surtees needed parts. And funnily enough, the Brazilian customs were being quite difficult releasing these parts. And there was much arguing with officials to release the parts, with John Surtees himself threatening, if you don't release these parts, Brazilian driver Pache won't drive.
Wow, that's a big leverage point there. But I bet it worked. But I'm surprised the Brazilian customs officials didn't realise that one of their own was like being held up by their ridiculous, officialdom.
They probably didn't realise, yeah. So the parts were released eventually. And the Shadow team had to do an all-nighter to get their cars ready as well. So Shadow obviously took advantage of the blackmail that Surtees applied.
So when the drivers first drove the track, there was a surprise as the track was even bumpier and rougher than 1973. So much so that the drivers could not get close to the pole time of 73. And it was local hero Fittipaldi in the McLaren who finally took pole, followed by Argentine hero Reutemann in the Brabham in second, and Lauda in the Ferrari third, with Peterson in the Lotus fourth.
Wow, so that's 4 different marks in the top 4, which is a really good sign for healthy competition. And I would just say quickly, and I think you've said this in the past, Rosa, it also shows that teammates are dominating their other teammate. Yeah.
Number one's a number one for a reason.
Yeah. So on race day, Reutemann stormed into the lead, with Peterson tucking in right behind.
So just a bit of interest, this is the first time we've heard of this, is that Peterson was driving with a cord attached to both sides of his helmet, one running down to the shoulder of his overalls and the other side connecting to his cockpit. This was to try and combat the high G-forces that was being generated at the circuit.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's like an early day hands device. And for those of you that don't know what that is, that's the big structure that's around the driver's Yeah, it's around the
Right.
driver's neck and head. It's there for safety and also G-force support.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So it's interesting to see that that's where the G-forces are really starting to kick in. And we've said this before, if it's in the Mike Lang book for the first time, that is, in theory, the first time it
Yes.
happened according to us. So there you go.
So back to the race, we've got Reutemann leading and Peterson second, with pole sitter and local hero Fittipaldi having fallen back to third place. But he was right up there with the other two. In fact, these three were pulling away from the rest of the field, and that was led by Regazzoni very early in the race.
Yeah, so for the first 3 laps, Reutemann withstood repeated challenges for the lead by Peterson, but it soon turned out that the softer front tyres that Reutemann had chosen was proving to be a mistake, as his car started to understeer badly, and there was little he could do to hold Peterson back on lap 4. And that was the beginning of the end for him, I think, because Fittipaldi followed quickly after, and that relegated Reutemann down to third.
Like even today, we know that softs don't last too long, but that was really fast. That what lap was that? That was third lap. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even Regazzoni in his Ferrari was quickly on Reutemann's tail.
Right, and where did he qualify? That's Regazzoni in the
Eighth.
Ferrari?
Eighth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good start from him up to nearly third.
So meanwhile, up front, the leading pair of Peterson and Fittipaldi were pulling away from the rest. So ex-teammates there, and they battled ferociously for the lead.
Yeah, and the battle was nicely poised as Peterson was faster on the straights and Fittipaldi faster in the corners.
Ah, that old chestnut, Louis.
Yeah. So Peterson was still holding the lead as the battle raged with Fittipaldi for 16 laps. And remember, this is a 32-lap race, so we're talking halfway mark. So that's pretty impressive.
So the moment the crowd had been waiting for happened when Peterson was lining up to lap the Williams of Merzario down the long straight. And this is where Fittipaldi took an outside line and went around both cars to steal the lead from Peterson.
Yeah, and in those days, they didn't have blue flags. So it was down to driver skill to read the situation and pass the back markers. And it seems like Fittipaldi read the situation much better. And it sounds like a really dramatic passing maneuver too. And everyone expected Peterson to fight back, but the Brazilian had other plans and he quickly pulled out a 2-second lead. And I was going to say...
that must have...
Yeah.
You go.
I was going to mention just quickly about lapping back markers in this era. Let's also not forget that some of those back markers didn't know if they were coming up against the leader, they didn't know they were about to be lapped.
No.
So sometimes that leading driver was at a disadvantage because they're letting the driver know, oh, you're being overlapped. And then the second place driver has an easier time. But Fittipaldi obviously proved that that wasn't an issue for him as he pulled away.
Yeah. How good must that have felt though for him? Ex-teammate, Lotus, he's in the McLaren.
Home track as well.
Home track, exactly. So Fittipaldi must have had pace in hand, as you say, because he just pulled away so quickly. So Peterson was doing a good job keeping him behind him for so long. But yeah.
Yeah, well, it didn't seem like he had pace in hand, but it was more a reflection of Peterson had problems in hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Peterson had a deflating rear tyre and he was forced into the pits to change the tyre. And despite a fast stop, he fell back out of race-winning contention. So the bad luck of this era is being spread out amongst different drivers. First Reutemann in the first race, then Peterson this race.
So with Peterson out of the picture, Fittipaldi was now leading with 9 seconds in hand over Regazzoni. And as we head to lap 30 of 32, there were a lot of retirements and numerous drivers needing to pit due to tyre wear issues.
Yeah, so this track really needs some attention because it's all causing all sorts of issues. And why did you mention as we head into lap 30? It gives me the impression something's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, something's happening. That's my segue into advising you all that a fine drizzle had developed. And within another lap, there was a torrential downpour.
Wow, so we're going to see some drama here because these cars are not set up for this, I expect.
Well, no, I doubt any of them had wets on. So, yeah, it was at this stage that Fittipaldi was gesticulating to the race organisers as he passed the pits in a huge plume of spray that he felt the race should be stopped. We're talking about a Brazilian driver leading the Brazilian race, asking for the race to be stopped.
Yeah. So Regazzoni slithered through 15 seconds later, followed by X, and the race organisers heeded Fittipaldi's advice and duly called the race, thus giving Fittipaldi his second Brazilian race victory. And what about Arce? Did he earn the benefit of Surtees' protest with the customs officials?
Yes, he did, Louis. He actually came fourth, having qualified 14th.
Wow.
Hailwood finished fifth in the McLaren, and Peterson recovered to sixth in his McLaren. So Reutemann, our early leader, finished seventh.
Poor guy. So back-to-back wins for McLaren. That's a good start. And a great start for them. And I bet Lotus is regretting Fittipaldi leaving them after backing Peterson at the end of 73, right?
Yes. So who came second and third, Louis? Did we not say that?
Let me check.
So second was Regazzoni and third was X. So McLaren, Ferrari, Lotus.
Then Surtees. So 4 different teams in the first 4 positions. Interesting.
So we've got Regazzoni now in the lead on 10 points. Fittipaldi and Holm together on 9 and Lauda on 6. And on the constructors, we've got McLaren on 18, Ferrari on 12 and Lotus on 4.
Okay, so we're up to race 3 of 15, the South African Grand Prix. So it's at Kyalami, 30th of March, 78 laps, warm and sunny. So this race opening unveiled the all-new Lotus 72, or as the sponsors wanted it to be called...
No, the Lotus 76.
76, sorry, 76. I'm just so used to the 72. Or as the sponsors sought to call it, the JPS 9. Sponsorship days. Yeah.
The sponsorship days. Yeah. Well, it was still that iconic black and gold, wasn't it? So BRM also revealed their new P201.
Okay, they're persisting.
Good on them. Like, they persist.
Yeah. And Hesketh revealed their new 308. Numerous other teams made fairly material updates to their cars from those early 2 races, and which was in March. So there is some sad news that we have to share, unfortunately. During the week prior to this race, there was some testing, and unfortunately, there was a fatal accident that involved Peter Revson.
The cause of the accident was apparently a front suspension failure, which caused his Shadow to crash head-on into a guardrail, killing the American driver instantly.
Yeah. The accident came less than 6 months after the accident that claimed Francois Severt, causing concern that the steel barriers were perhaps less effective as a safety device for the drivers. As a result, the steel barriers at the location of the accident were replaced with catch fencing. So
just to do a very quick but respectful recap of Peter Revson's career, he had 32 entries and 30 starts. He had 2 wins and 8 podiums. And he amassed 61 career points and had 1 pole position. So that's a pretty good record, actually.
Yeah. Nearly 1/3 of his races were on the podium. He was actually competitive. He wasn't. I mean, yes, he was there because of his money. Let's not pretend. But he was actually. I think even without the money, he would have been a driver that teams wanted in their team. Yeah.
So he was born in New York. He was the son of Martin Revson, which was the founding partner of Revlon Cosmetics, as we said. He was a young, handsome bachelor described as a free spirit, and he passed up an easy life because he came from a lot of money for one of competition and danger. Of course, he did attract some of the most beautiful women of the world. And at the time of his death, he was engaged to the recently dethroned 1973 Miss World, Marjorie Wallace. I'm not going to go into why she was dethroned, but yeah. So anyway, there's a few quotes about him. So Tony Southgate, the designer of the DN3, which I assume is the car that he was driving, said that he was a really easygoing guy, fitted in really well, and a very good driver. He wasn't for us long. He qualified on row 2 for Argentina and row 3 for Brazil. And then he and I, our chief mechanic and 2 other mechanics, went down to Kyalami for testing. Revy was going very well. very happy with the car, and then he didn't come around. We rushed out to the back of the circuit and found the car buried under the Armco on the outside of the quick corner. Yeah, Peter was already in the ambulance and gone.
Yeah, it's very sad, and it changed the way the drivers worked. And I think the next quote, Tony Southgate, who was one of the designers that Rosa mentioned, his feelings afterwards were the glamour of Formula One had gone, replaced by sort of loneliness. You just had to work on. So it just shows the impact that these tragedies had, even when they weren't at the actual race itself.
So back to the race. Practice was a challenging affair with many teams, in particular the Lotus, having teething problems with their new car, well, especially with that stupid double electric brake clutch contraption. However, it was Lauda who set the fastest time on the first day of practice, and he did it again on the second to claim his first ever pole position. Pache in the Surtees did an amazing job to claim second place. Wow.
Yeah, and that's really impressive. And I don't even know if it's more amazing or similarly amazing that Matario in the Williams claimed third.
Yes, that is, I think, even more amazing. At least Surtees had done a few things last year as well.
Yeah, whereas Williams haven't done that first season. They did really well, but then they fell away, and they're coming back again. And Reutemann finished fourth or secured fourth on the grid in the Brabham, and Fittipaldi fifth in the McLaren.
Yeah, wow. That's 5 different marks again in the first 5 positions. So that's very competitive qualifying. So when it came to race day, and due to the confusion from the race starts in South America, the organisers tried a new race start procedure. So this involved the drivers being sent out on their own with instructions to stay in grid formation.
Yeah, sort of like what they do in 2025, like the warm-up lap.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and the way I've been seeing Formula One since I started watching in the early 80s or mid-80s. Yeah.
Yes, they experimented with this in South Africa in 1974. So they made mention in the race summary by Mike Lang that prior to this, they had an official car lead the cars out on a warm-up lap. So yeah, I didn't realise that until they mentioned it now.
Yeah, I wonder why they did that, to stop the cars going too fast.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know the rule, Rosa, as we say, if it's mentioned by Mike Lang for the first time, it's the first time we believe it ever happened. So it's hard to think that this is it. The interesting thing is at the front of the grid, i.e. Lauda and Fittipaldi, were calling for the flag to be dropped as their cars were overheating. They were frustrated by how long the back of the grid was taking to line up on the grid.
Yes. So this is something that has always been a problem, but they don't complain today because it's the norm. So I'm not surprised they were complaining about it in 74, which is like the first time they were doing it. You can imagine like on a long track, like the Nürburgring, they'd be waiting there for like ages.
Oh, yeah. And there'd be a strategy by the backmarkers to overheat all the cars at the front. So when the flag finally dropped, Lauda leapt into the lead, but unfortunately, Pache's Surtees nearly stalled. So Reutemann from fourth was fast to go around the outside, and he took second place, and Regazzoni and Scheckter slotted in after them.
Poor Pache. That was his chance, wasn't it? Front row, did really well the last race to get fourth. And what did he do? His car just didn't.
He stalled.
He stalled it.
A nonsense start.
Well, we have even more drama. The Lotus team, who didn't qualify well due to lots of niggles. So actually Peterson qualified 16th and Ickx 11th, broke the number 1 rule of F1. Peterson found his throttle sticking open and he collided with his teammate's car. The accident also took out 2 other drivers.
Yeah, so the new Lotus sounds like a disaster.
He probably didn't know how to use the clutch.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a good call, actually. So Peterson was leading the race, and they're suddenly, sorry, let me get this right. The new Lotus sounds like a disaster. Peterson was leading the last race, and now they're suddenly midfielders and taking each other out. So talk about a big change in events, right?
Massive, yeah. I think Colin Chapman has reached too far this time. So out in front, Lauda remained firmly in the lead. Reutemann was not far behind, seemingly biding his time. It was on lap 10, though, that Reutemann pulled out of Lauda's slipstream and sliced through into the lead. And then he quickly built a 2-second lead over Lauda.
Yeah, but Lauda was not falling back, and he was able to easily stay with the Brabham, and these two proceeded to pull away from the rest while Regazzoni settled into third place, best of the rest, followed by Jody Scheckter, who was leading a gaggle of no less than 10 drivers who were pretty much nose to tail, with Fittipaldi being one of the first drivers in that line of cars.
So at half distance, Reutemann and Lauda continued to pull away. The attention now turned to Beltoise in the BRM, who was really in sync with his new BRM car. He had qualified, about 11th, and he was in that gaggle of cars behind Scheckter. But as Scheckter started to have handling problems, there was a reshuffling of the order, and Beltoise went on to charge, passing car after car.
It's always interesting when drivers go into these zones. So finally we can say something about BRM. So Beltoise was now up to fourth place, and that's when Regazzoni suddenly coasted into the pits with oil pressure issues.
No, not at the cost of Regazzoni. He's the only reliable and steady Ferrari driver we've got at the moment. So anyway, the leaders, Reutemann and Lauda, were still together and leading, with Beltoise about 30 seconds behind, until Lauda's Ferrari started to suffer sagging oil pressure. So Lauda realised the issue and tried to coast around the corners in an effort to finish the race. He knew that he had a big gap to Beltoise and felt confident that he could still secure second place. That's a lot like a Clark. Yeah. That's a Clark strategy right there, isn't it?
Yeah. Lauda's a very smart and strategic driver in these situations. So with 3 laps to go, unfortunately, despite those efforts that Lauda that you explained, his engine cut out completely. So Ferrari were a safe 2-3, and now they're both out.
Oh, no.
So disappointing. The car really has potential, doesn't it? So
yes.
This not only allowed Reutemann to cruise to his first F1 victory, but also Brabham's first in 4 years, which was ironically at this exact same circuit.
Was that Jack Brabham that won that 4 years ago?
Probably.
I'm putting you on the spot here, Louis.
I can't say for certain without checking, but I would say very confident.
I would say so, yeah. So, welcome back, Brabham, and welcome to the winner's circle, Reutemann. Hailwood in the McLaren finished a fortunate third, and he qualified 12th, followed by Stuck. That's a cool name for a racing car driver. And Merzario. So I don't know what Stuck was driving. What was he driving, Louis?
Stuck was driving. I've got to make sure I remember I'm looking at the list. He definitely qualified in the middle of
a March Ford, it says. Maybe he's in like a...
Yeah, it depends on the team because they're using a March chassis. And I was just digesting. Yes, it was Brabham that won that race because I think it was his last.
It was his last, yeah.
Was it his last win or did he get a win in 73? His last season? I can't remember.
Jack Brabham? Nah, Jack Brabham wasn't racing in 73, was he? He retired in the 70s. In 70, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, 70, yeah. And that would have been his last win.
That was his last win.
Okay,
yeah.
So Stuck was in the March chassis. And Merzario didn't really perform well in this race after an awesome qualifying, which we talked about third, was it? But he did get points for that young William team, though.
Oh, that's good.
Let me just see what he finished.
Back to the Drivers' Championship. Oh, sorry. What did he finish?
He finished 6th.
Oh, well, that's good. So the Drivers' Championship standings, we've got Clay Regazzoni on 10, Reutemann and Emerson Fittipaldi and Holm and Hailwood all on 9.
Really close.
Yes. And in the constructors, we've got McLaren on 22, Ferrari on 12. Wow. And Brabham on 9, BRM on 8, and Lotus on 4.
Looks like Fittipaldi made a good move.
Yes, it does.
So we've got time for one more race this episode, I think.
Okay, let's go.
Race 4 of 5, the Spanish Grand Prix at Jarama. 28th of April, 84 laps and wet and dry weather, or wet and dry later. So this is the first race of the European season.
Yes, and the situation could not have been more interesting for a few reasons. The week after the South African Grand Prix, Hunt in the Hesketh had won the non-championship race at Silverstone.
That's making a statement because remember, he's in a not the best car.
No.
Yeah.
So while this is race 4, of the 6 races held thus far, 6 races held thus far.
Because I think there must have been, maybe
Some
5 races.
non-championship ones.
Yeah.
5 had been won by different drivers, driving 4 different cars, and the championship leader, Regazzoni, in the Ferrari, had not won any of them.
Yeah. And that's reflection.
Weird.
That's a good warm-up for 1974 because this is a season that is like that all the way through. So this is a good one to listen to.
Okay, so for this race, Tyrrell was debuting their new car, the 007, for Scheckter, and we have the debut of 2 new teams, as we said, the Amon with their AF 101 and the Trojan with their TJ 103. I do like the name Trojan for a car. That's cool.
I was wondering if you were going to say something because you like those. You like those marketing names.
I do. I do
Yeah.
like them.
So while we won't be talking a great deal about these teams due to Australian bias, we'll just mention that the Trojan was designed by ex-Brabham designer Ron Toronak. So he's formerly of Brabham, I mentioned, and was driven by Australian driver Tim Schenken.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. So to the race, it was clear to all that the Ferrari was immediately on the pace.
Yeah, well, as long as they've fixed their oil pressure issues, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. And we do have to mention a tragedy that did take place during practice for this race. Holm had a change of tyres, veered off the track and unavoidably struck a marshal.
Ironically, that marshal had been trying to warn drivers of an earlier incident, and this marshal was critically injured. He's not named in the Mike Lang book, but we want to acknowledge the sacrifice that this person made for the sport.
Yeah. And most likely they were volunteers, as most marshals are even today. So they're doing this at a time when there was a lot less safe. It was a lot less safer to be a marshal. So yeah, we just want to give a quick mention to them.
Imagine how Holm must have felt too. That's pretty bad. Shocking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ferrari continued their strong form in practice and Lauda secured back-to-back pole positions, followed by Peterson in the Lotus and then the other Regazzoni in the other Ferrari, the other Ferrari Regazzoni.
Yeah, and so it makes me wonder, Lotus were nowhere in the last race with their new car. Yeah. What's with this race? Are they using the old car again or what's the story? Do you know?
I think they were still using their new car. So they did a great deal of testing to sort out the issues. So they're now back to being a bit more competitive like they were at the start of the season.
Yeah, okay. So at race start, it was raining and the track was wet. So when the flag fell, Peterson showed that the Lotus was much improved to his liking, so to your point, Rosa, and he charged into the lead from the front row of the grid. And let's not forget, a wet track means spray, which means he's the only driver with a clear track ahead of him.
So by the end of the first lap, Peterson held the lead, followed by the 2 Ferraris of Lauda and Regazzoni, and Peterson's teammate X moved up to 4th. Fittipaldi was 5th in his McLaren. It was later revealed that Fittipaldi's car was running on 7 cylinders, but it was less of an issue on this track due to the slippery and wet conditions.
I wonder if they could hear that. You know?
Yeah. Well, that guy said he could hear it. Well, Clark could hear it, couldn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said not the driver, but other drivers and teams. So they knew that he was compromised. You know what I mean?
Yes, I think. Yeah, I wonder.
So the leading quartet of Lotus, Ferrari, Lotus were pulling away from the 7-cylinder Fittipaldi, and it was by lap 11 that Scheckter in the Tyrrell had enough, and he pushed past Fittipaldi to give chase to the leading quartet.
So soon after, go.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say there was a gaggle of retirements and pit stops that resulted in Reutemann retiring, Holm having issues, and Beltoise, the hero of the last race, retiring.
Wow. Okay, so about the teen laps, the race stopped and it would be clear to all that they would need...
The rain stopped, not the race.
Oh, the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd need to change tyres, as the wet weather tyres would overheat. So the big question is, when is the right time? Don't want to go in too soon and slide off the wet track, and don't want to be too late. So it's going to be interesting because they had minimal data in this era and, as we said, minimal communication back to the driver. So it really came down to how the driver felt. Yeah, it really came down to a driver choice, wasn't it, about when they came in to change the tyres.
That and how long those pit stops took back then. That'd have been 30
Yes.
plus seconds or something. Yeah. So by lap 17, it was Stuck who was the first to change tyres, followed quickly by Eamon. Just like in current times, i.e. the mid-2020s, it's normally the middle of pack backmarkers that are first to take a risk because they've got the least to lose and the most to gain. And all the top teams watch to see their times, right?
Yes.
So it's funny how things haven't changed.
Yes. So on lap 19, Regazzoni, remember he was a member of that leading group of 4, pitted, and then the leaders were all pitting in quick succession. That also happens now, doesn't it? As soon as one leader pits, everyone pits. So interestingly, though, Mike Lang states that the Ferrari pit stops were spectacular and they only lost 35 seconds, while the Lotus pit stops were shambolic.
Is that your words, shambolic, or Mike Lang's?
That's Mike Lang's words.
Okay, well, this is how shambolic it was. Ickx was allowed to drive away with a right wheel not tightened properly. As a result, he stopped further down the pit lane with no drive to the rear wheels. But it gets worse. Ickx then lost more time as while trying to resolve that situation, he accidentally triggered the fire extinguisher, which made foam go all over the engine, which made it harder to restart the engine because of the foam that was all over it.
You know, if I didn't know any better, Louis, I would say that you would be describing a Ferrari pit stop, not a Lotus pit stop. If I think of the Ferraris of the early 2020s, that's Ferrari-like shambolic behaviour. That is weird. That is bad, isn't it? So the mere fact that Ferrari nailed it is probably due to the Ferrari team manager, none other than Stefano Domenicali, a very big name in today's Formula One.
Yes.
I'm not sure if he was the team principal in 74, but he was definitely a team principal in the mid-70s. So it shows the impact of good team leader.
He was definitely a team principal.
Okay. So shows the impact of good team leadership, doesn't it? I'm not saying that Colin Chapman was not a good leader, but something's going on in that Lotus garage.
Yeah. It sounds pretty bad though, doesn't it? So
how could they not tighten a tyre? That's your one job.
And then the domino effect, the fire extinguisher and the rest. So when Ickx eventually rejoined the race, he was many laps in arrears and he eventually retired due to fluid leaking from his front brakes.
Was it fire extinguisher fluid?
Yeah.
Poor Ickx. And he's looking at his Ferrari X team going, bloody hell.
Yeah, I know. And now it's poor Lotus because a few minutes earlier, Peterson's engine had blown up after losing its water.
So from being part of the leading pack of 4 to out. So they need to learn from this, Lotus. They need to actually get the races happening well, not just the car, development of the car. So back to the race where cars were actually racing, there was now major confusion as the rush of tyre changes and the chaos in the pits, partly due to Lotus, made it very difficult for the timekeepers to track the order of the drivers. The only certainty was that Lauda and Regazzoni were first and second. Yes, I like it.
Yeah, you would have been happy with that. And apparently the remaining drivers had little idea of their actual positions. And for an hour, the drivers were out there going for it, not being aware of what exactly they were battling for.
Oh, that sounds like a shambles. A whole hour? So they didn't even know who was third that whole time.
I know. And there were numerous retirements which didn't help. So, for example, Mazzario and his Williams understeered off the track and vaulted into a guardrail on lap 38. And this took place while he was trying to overtake Jarier in the shadow. And it later transpired that this was while Jarier was up in 4th place.
What do you mean it later transpired? So Mazzario was challenging for 4th and he didn't know. You'd think if he knew, he would have been a bit more careful to land 5th for the young Williams team. Like, that's crazy driving.
I know. And Mazzario was amazingly not hurt, and he even landed amongst a group of photographers, and fortunately none of them were hurt either. So the race ended at the 2-hour mark and ended after 84 laps, 6 laps short of the scheduled 90.
So Lauda won the race 30 seconds ahead of Regazzoni to score his first World Championship victory and Ferrari's 50th victory. So it's been a long time since we've had a Ferrari victory and a 1-2.
Yeah, big win.
We need to pin this moment because let's not forget that Regazzoni is leading this championship and Ferrari didn't switch their drivers.
Not that I imagine Lauda would have switched, right?
Well, I still don't know who's number one in this team.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean,
It's hard to tell.
Regazzoni, I think Lauda owned Regazzoni at BRM, but Regazzoni's just having a bit more luck this year, isn't he? Yeah.
He is. But also, I mean, it's still too early in the season for them to be making a call to switch the drivers. This is only race 4.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to be on form.
That's
It's hard-
right.
It's hard to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lauda has got 2 of the last 2 pole positions, remember? So he's showing.
Yes, he's showing some.
form.
Yes.
So
yeah,
to the race,
interesting.
yeah. So to the race, the officials announced that Fittipaldi had come third, 1 lap in arrears in his 7-cylinder McLaren. That's pretty impressive. This was fixed when he had his tyre change and they replaced the spark plug.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. Stuck came 4th in the March, followed by Scheckter in the Tyrrell and Holm in the McLaren.
Really, who knows how accurate these results were, other than the Ferrari pair?
Yeah, I know. We'll never know, to be honest.
No, you never know. Yeah. All right. So to the championship standings, Regazzoni on 16 points, followed very closely by his teammate Lauda on 15, Fittipaldi on 13 in third, Holm on 10 points and Reutemann on 9. And on the constructors, we've got McLaren on 26 and Ferrari catching up quickly on 21. And then the Brabham on 9 points. BRM's hanging in there on 8 points.
They're getting points, and that Ferrari caught up to the McLarens pretty quick.
Yes, pretty quick.
There was a big gap after one race, but a 1-2 helps cause it, doesn't it?
That's right. Okay, we're going to leave it there and come back for part 3 next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.